want to fight for my life. I want to fight for, just and not guilty. Like, I want to have a life to be able to live. It's really going to be hard for me to take more hits than I take it, God forbid, get in front of a jury and have a chance. And so I'm having this emergency call because something has to give.
We need the core theme to be, you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong on any front. And you've come to New York to face things head on. If anyone's ever paying any attention to what you've actually been doing, you've handled this with complete honor.
I don't think it's working. I listened. I've been a superb client, as you said. I jumped on the plane. I'm coming to New York, but I'm just running around waiting for a shoe to drop.
We're losing sight of the big picture, man. It's the middle of September and there's still no indictment.
Then you have to have a spokesman. You have to have some sort of comms to constantly be pushing that, Mark. Because you may just be a person that you just may watch CNN. You know what I'm saying? And there's 9 billion people in the world. And 7 billion of them is on Instagram and TikTok. And so you at the wrong place looking to see what the people with the possible jurors are thinking. We have to find somebody that'll work with us, whether they from this country or from another country. It could be somebody that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business of media and propaganda.
When you're a leader,
it's to count.
I think it's important to...
He says it's not personal. Obviously, it is personal if you did a whole documentary about Puff, man. Yo, 50 Cent, you really on this dude's jock. You on this nigga's jock heavy, man. Me personally, I don't believe nothing that you say. I don't believe that Puff asked to take you shopping. I think you're upset because your son's mother was in love with Puff and she left you and you was in love with her. And Puffy, she was just something for Puffy to do. And I think you're upset with that.
They tried to bury it. They spent millions to erase it. They built a fortress of lawyers to ensure that no judge, no jury, and absolutely no camera would ever see it. But they made one fatal mistake. They forgot that in 2024, the most dangerous evidence doesn't come from the FBI. It comes from a streaming service. Netflix just released something that wasn't just a video. It was a glitch in the legal system. A piece of footage filmed just days before the arrest that contradicts everything the defense has been saying for months. And the moment it hit the internet, the atmosphere in the legal world didn't just change, it froze. We are talking about a disturbance that spreads quietly at first, like a gas leak in a crowded room. You don't see it, but suddenly everyone feels sick. Within minutes of the drop, unease turned into shock. Shock turned into speculation, and speculation turned into the one thing Diddy's team fears more than anything else, the realization that the game is over. Because this wasn't just a leak. This was forbidden footage. Footage the courtroom never reviewed. Footage prosecutors kept in their back pocket. No, they didn't even have it. But now it's streaming on millions of screens, and the judge cannot unsee what the world is watching. Inside top-tier law firms, phones started vibrating off the tables. Attorneys were texting each other in panic. Where did this come from? Why wasn't this in discovery? This changes everything. Because they know the rule of law. When hidden evidence resurfaces, it doesn't just change the story. It changes the sentence. And right now, that sentence is sliding dangerously close to life in prison. The silence is louder than the noise. Here is why this is terrifying for the defense. Netflix didn't just release a documentary. They cracked open a door the justice system had welded shut. Inside the courthouse, the reaction was immediate and visceral. Clerks were whispering in corridors. Prosecutors were forwarding clips straight to the judge's chambers, bypassing morning protocol. Why the panic? Because when evidence bypasses the courtroom and hits the public first, the judge is forced into a corner. He cannot pretend he is blind. He cannot ask the jury to ignore the elephant in the room. And the question, rising louder than any other, is the one nobody wanted to confront. Does this footage prove the pattern? You see, everyone expected the footage to be explosive. They expected screaming, violence, chaos. But what Netflix showed was far more dangerous. It was quiet. It was raw. It was unedited. And that is why it is lethal. Sometimes the most devastating evidence isn't the kind that screams. It's the kind that whispers. Viewers framed frames. Analysts dissected micro-expressions. But the people who were truly terrified were the ones inside the legal system. They weren't looking for drama. They were looking for implication. The footage showed a level of control, a calculation that the courtroom never argued. And in federal sentencing, calculation is a trap door. It turns a confused defendant into a mastermind. And masterminds do not get leniency. They get the maximum. The panic behind closed doors. Let me take you inside the room where the defense team is currently spiraling. In a normal federal case, there is a rule called discovery. It's the golden rule. The prosecution must show the defense everything they have. It ensures a fair fight. But Netflix plays by no rules. This documentary exists outside the laws of discovery. The defense team couldn't object to it. They couldn't suppress it. They were helpless, watching their defense strategy burn down in 4K resolution along with the rest of the world. Reports suggest the internal reaction was a total meltdown. They didn't have the footage. They didn't know its origin. They didn't know which questions the judge was now asking his clerks behind closed doors. Most terrifying of all, they didn't know which specific 10 seconds of the clip the judge was replaying over and over again. Because here is a psychological truth about judges. When they rewatch a video, they aren't looking for entertainment. They're looking for intent. And if the judge sees intent in those frames, the entire plea deal, the entire defense strategy vanishes. The defense is now fighting a ghost they can't cross-examine. The head of the snake theory. To understand why this leads to life in prison, you have to understand how the RICO Act actually works. It is not about a single crime. It is about a pattern. The government doesn't just want to catch the guy pulling the trigger. They want the guy giving the nod. This is the psychological warfare of federal court. They look for the boss archetype, the puppeteer. The rumors circulating about this footage suggest it shows Diddy in a moment of pure, cold management of dirty business. In the eyes of the law, the man giving the orders is infinitely more dangerous than the man following them. This is the head of the snake theory. Federal judges are instructed to cut the head off the snake. If this footage convinces the judge that Diddy was the undisputed general of a criminal army, the sentencing guidelines go out the window. It stops being a math problem about years served, and it starts being a public safety problem. And the solution to public safety problems is usually a key that gets thrown away. The betrayal from within. But the story gets darker. Paranoia is setting in. Because footage like this doesn't just appear. Someone held onto it. Someone saved it. Someone waited for the exact moment where it would cause the most damage, and then they pressed send. Rumors have been swirling that industry rivals, people like 50 Cent and others who've been vocal critics, may have known this was coming. But it goes deeper. The intimacy of the footage suggests it was filmed by someone close. Someone in the inner circle. Imagine sitting in a prison cell and realizing that the evidence sinking you wasn't found by the police, it was filmed by your friend. This adds a layer of psychological torture that is likely eating Diddy alive inside MDC Brooklyn. Who filmed it? Who kept it? And who is smiling right now watching it trend on Twitter. The betrayal is almost as damaging as the legal consequences. It implies the circle of trust didn't just break, it shattered. And when the call is coming from the inside the house, you have nowhere left to hide. The escalation option. Here is the term you need to remember: behavioral escalation. In the hours after the documentary dropped, prosecutors reportedly drafted internal notes using this exact phrase: context supporting behavioral escalation. It sounds boring, right? It's not. It is a silent nuclear bomb in sentencing law. Escalation means the defendant is getting worse, not better. It means they are a future risk. And if a judge determines future risk, he has the power to use an upward departure. This is the legal term for "I am ignoring the suggested sentence and giving you what I think you deserve." This is the nightmare scenario. If the judge watches this Netflix footage and sees a man who is manipulative, unrepentant, and highly organized, he can legally maximize the sentence. The conversation shifts from "how many years" to "will he ever walk out?" The view from the tomb. Let's transport ourselves to MDC Brooklyn for a second. This place is known as the tomb. It is grim, cold, and loud. But right now, it's quiet. Inmates are passing around printed articles. Guards are exchanging knowing looks. The televisions in the common area are flashing the headlines. Everyone inside knows what this means. The whisper on the cell block is unanimous. They're going to bury him. Diddy feels the shift, not through his lawyers, but through the air itself. The tension is radiating off the walls. He knows that something outside, something he can't control, something he can't pay to go away, is changing his fate. He entered that prison believing his battle was being fought by high-priced lawyers in suits. Now he realizes the battle is being fought on a streaming server, and he is losing. The psychological weight of that realization is crushing. To know that millions of people are judging you based on a clip you didn't even know existed, that is a special kind of hell. The domino effect. But wait, because it gets worse. A documentary like this acts as a signal flare. When a massive piece of media drops, it wakes people up. Victims who were previously too scared, too intimidated, or too unsure to speak up. They see the footage, they see the public support, and they pick up the phone. We call this the domino effect. One piece of leaked footage empowers one new witness. That witness corroborates a rumor. That rumor leads to a subpoena. And suddenly, the prosecutors have a fresh list of charges that weren't there last week. This is the greatest fear for the defense. It's not just about the video. It's about the avalanche the video starts. If the tip lines are lighting up, and reports suggest they are, then the judge isn't just looking at one case anymore. He's looking at a growing monster. And judges do not let monsters out on bail. The judge's final move. In the final days of the review, the judge sat with everything: the footage, the records, the silence, the pressure. And then the atmosphere shifted again. The judge issued a signal, a statement noting that the material raises significant questions regarding the sufficiency of the existing sentence. Translate that from legal speak to English: the current punishment isn't enough. This is the point of no return. Netflix didn't just expose evidence, they exposed a possibility. The possibility that the original sentence was based on a lie. And now that the truth is out, the system has to correct itself. And when the justice system corrects itself, it usually swings the hammer as hard as it can. As the defense team scrambles to file motions to block this extrajudicial material, the prosecution is quietly smiling. They know the truth. You cannot unring a bell. The judge has seen the man behind the curtain. The public has seen the glitch in the matrix. Conclusion: the verdict before the verdict. The shockwave from this leak hasn't faded. It's growing. It is sharpening. It has turned into something the legal system can no longer ignore. Because once evidence surfaces publicly, once millions of us dissect it, the court is forced to do something it hates. It must look again. Netflix didn't just release a movie. They potentially signed a warrant for a life sentence. The judge's review was supposed to be a formality, a quick glance, but the footage forced him to stare into the abyss. And when you stare into the abyss stares back. This leaves us with a terrifying reality. The system is responding, not to protect the public, but to protect its own reputation, and that makes the outcome unpredictable and dangerous. Before we go, I have to ask you the question that is tearing the internet apart right now. Do you believe a judge should be allowed to increase a man's sentence based on a Netflix documentary? Or should the courtroom remain the only place where evidence matters? Is this justice, or is this a witch hunt fueled by an algorithm? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want to be the first to know when the judge makes his final ruling, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because this story isn't over. In fact, the most shocking chapter is about to begin. And trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next.
She's like 18, like 19 years old. In the very beginning, after a while, over time, you condition for
His opinion.
But somewhere in my soul, I think Diddy been holding on to this, looking for an opportunity to come for Diddy, since 50 put out How to Rob early.
I mean, yes, you know, listen.
Because the whole industry, remember, the whole industry at that time, if you old enough, you know, of a certain age, you remember that they was mad at 50 for, you know, talking like that in that song.
Yeah.
And they tried to really squeeze bro out of the game. And then obviously the streets and other things, shenanigans was going on, which almost ended 50's life. But then he returned. No, your man, no, I'm telling you. And it's all fun and game. It's all funny and fun and games to him now. He don't care.
Oh my God, no.
There's a whole lot of crazy shit going on. You know, when I saw they knocked the bad boy building down, yeah. Like that shit was crazy to me that shit wasn't there, which is a sign to me like, time to go to the future. Time to go to the future. That was a little building. Prepare for the building that I got ready to son. You know what I'm saying? So it was a sign to me like that's what I'm saying. That shit there like 2 months ago, right? I'm not tripping. Yeah, it was, man.
Puff is in this position where he has all this turmoil, but he's not at the point where he's saying where I went wrong. He's saying to himself, how do I get out of this? Maybe I can convince some witnesses that I'm not the guy who I am.
Here's what his former security guard said.
I'm getting to this, yo, Bonds, yo, man, yo, how 50 get, blah, 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 yo, Puff, take this out on that. Let me explain something to y'all. All right, whether it's NBAs, whether it's whatever. When these young boys come in, first of all, he only deal with young videographers because he want to rob them, and he know that they want the opportunity to follow Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. They want that opportunity. So they get him at a low price anyway. But when you stay out so many hours a day, Puff wants a videographer with him 24 hours a day on call. Whether we on a yacht, whether we on a ship, wherever we at, he wants to videotape that, right? So now, they come to agreement. They come to whatever the pay is going to be. But then it be so many hours on that invoice that he don't want to pay. He gets in touch with the office. He gets in touch with the chief of staff. Yo, what is this I'm paying? What is this I'm paying? You know what you paying. You was outside all of these hours. It's 160 something hours in a week. You was outside 140. That's the invoice he put in. So now, being if you got a contract and he don't stand to that contract, guess what happens? He could do whatever he want to do with that footage. So now that footage goes to the highest bidder. And 50 had to be the highest bidder to get the, yo, this is business. You know what I'm saying? Everybody ain't in love with you. Everybody ain't dedicated. Everybody ain't loyal to the point of stupidity.